Sure, yeah. Hi, everybody. I always say buenas tardes because I do a lot of community events, and I always say hello in Spanish. So, buenas tardes. Hello, I'm Carolina Osorio Gill, or Carolina Osorio Gill, however you prefer to pronounce that. And I just want to start off by saying that I'm a little bit nervous. So, thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. So I will open with our first question, which was, what does being progressive mean to you?
Yes. Thank you so much. Thanks, Anna. So to me, being progressive, there's a couple of things that it means to me. There's the definition, and then there's, on a national level. But I guess what I wanted to address is in a community that largely, at least in my 18 years or going on 19 years experience here in Ithaca, considers itself very progressive. Within that context, then what does progressive mean to me? To me, being progressive is about imagining a world that is just and that we value as we being. That's a whole issue of mine, is who are we that are valuing this, as being good, as being just, as being anti-racist, as being respectful of the earth and of the people whose land this belongs to, and of all of the many different values we have, and then making decisions, policy decisions included, and actions in our lives based on that view of where we want to go. And to me, that's why we are hopefully progressing towards an end goal and being driven by those goals and values, as opposed to, in some instances, a specific law that is written, or I'm thinking specifically in my own communities with immigration law, being driven by our values and our beliefs.
We had several microphones. It made it so much easier.
It's fine.
Oh, yeah, it's helpful that we're friends. So, yes. What is your approach to consensus building in a group? And please give an example that illustrates that approach.
Right. Great. So I can give many examples of consensus building. And for me, as a woman of color, I am a member of a bunch of different boards. I've been in different kinds of organizing committees of different organizations where I've been, quote unquote, the minority, in the sense of being the, only person of color, or some other situation where I represent a minority viewpoint. And to me, consensus is about building together what is best in general, and understand, and for the goal that we are trying to reach. And in doing that, understanding that and valuing the different particular nuances and opinions, and trying to build consensus is, as I was describing kind of about being progressive, is my approach has been to try to build agreement on a goal, and then together work to achieve that goal. And understanding that there are differences among us, and that we need to be able to acknowledge those, respect those, and also not let it stop us from going forward. And so in the work that I do, the immediate example that comes to mind, the most immediate example, is the case of Jose Guzman, who was a Guatemalan immigrant who was recently taken by ICE. And then our decision, ours being various concerned community members, mine, Fabina Colon from the Multicultural Resource Center, and Reed Stieberger, were among the main organizers of this rally. And in that situation where Jose was taken, and then right away, there was this buzz about what happened and the newspaper article, and in that situation, we had somebody's, life as they know it here where they've lived at stake, and we had to make some decisions about what we were going to do. And in order to do that, there were different opinions about what needed to happen, and always keeping in mind, which I think is a good lesson for all of us to keep in mind, that something I try to do is who is affected by these decisions that we're making, and do we want to, for example, release his name when we knew it, release information, or not, or hold back on that to protect his family, even though that we knew that eventually it was public record and it would be released anyway. So in that instance, taking the several steps in a fast and grassroots way to bring together a group, I recognize some of you who were there, to come together, and then after that, what is it that we're going to do and to help build action. And so since then, I've been working with the Tompkins, I've been a small part of the work that the Tompkins County Immigrant Rights Coalition has been doing in taking action steps, and I'm happy to report that there is a rapid response team that's being built. A phone number is available for people who are afraid of deportation to call now, and there are people signed up who are going to be answering those phone calls, and teams of people who will be ready to show up. Thank you.
So next question, are you worried about potential loss of federal funding for Medicaid? If that did happen, how would you approach this with your colleagues to do your best to ensure everyone receives health care?
Absolutely. Yes, I think that in this national political situation and crisis that we're in, that there's valid concern, and I'm very concerned. I work on at times in my life, I've worked in a daily basis with people who are on Medicaid, and I've experienced, holding people's hands at DSS office and trying to get their paperwork in order. There are, I read in the 7,000, cases that were last reported in 2013 of people who are on Medicaid. So losing Medicaid is a really, it's a threat to keep in mind. And I'm a supporter of single payer healthcare, and however, that doom and gloom on one column, and then on the other column, all of the positive and wonderful services that we have in Tompkins County, including the Ithaca Health Alliance that I've done work with, and some of the work that I've been doing is connecting all the different health and human services that are available and healthcare services that are available for free or low cost, and connecting, in my case, Spanish-speaking and Latinx community members and other historically marginalized community members with those services, that I imagine as a legislator I would have I would have an investment and experience in working on, if the case were, building and strengthening the services that we're well known to have in this county for healthcare for people, for low-income people and people in need.
Cecily, I feel like musical chairs.
Yes.
So what is your stance on increasing property taxes to address local community needs?
Okay. Well, I must say that, this is, I don't know, is it a well-known progressive conundrum, or, we want really great services, and those really great services cost a lot of money, and we pay for those services with our property taxes. And I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? It was about property taxes, right? Or tax?
Stance on increasing
Property taxes, right. Thank you. So I just want to make sure I was talking about the right thing. And when I say this, I mean, in going door to door, collecting signatures and collecting petitions, before petition time started, I went door to door and asked people, what their concerns were for the county, what they would like to see. And in my district, and a lot in my area, which is South Hill, because the district is composed of South Hill and then also Bell Sherman, Bryant Park, and then also a part of North Campus. But even throughout the district, taxes and property taxes are a huge concern. And for me personally, they are. I'm a longtime renter. I'd love to own a home, but definitely one of the barriers in owning a home to me is not as much the mortgage, but the property taxes and the fact that they're increasing. I've talked to people in my district who are started out with an affordable home through INHS, and then they can't afford the taxes anymore. That's what's preventing. So I consider it, and I'm not, admittedly, I'm not a professional politician, and I'm not experienced. I'm a community organizer who's trying to get into politics, but I am very interested in working on this issue of finding some sort of any way to help assuage or manage any savings that come from the property taxes, but acknowledging, like many people in our district do and in our county, that they know that the taxes are really high, and they also know that it goes for really good services, and I know that too. And so, thank you. Yes.
So we have a bunch of questions, but I'm going to ask only one more and then open it up to the group. The IDA currently approves abatements for large developments, including hotels and residential buildings. In your opinion, can you describe some of the pros and cons of this program and what requirements you would support that could benefit the community as well as the developers?
Right. So, I mean, to me, I live on South Cayuga Street, about 3 blocks from the Commons, and I see every day, the properties that as I'm learning more and more as I do this, receive these tax abatements, the hotels and the large, the developments around my area. And so I can see the benefits. There's more spending, there's more people being hired. I would like to make sure that people who are hired in places, for example, like the hotels or places that have service, in the service industry, like the Marriott Hotel, which is right next to my district, issues of having people, making sure that everyone who works there is receiving a living wage. People in the service industry are often the ones you don't see, the ones washing your dishes and cleaning your room when you stay there, are people like me, people of color, Latinx people, and other people of color who don't receive a living wage, and you don't see them. And so putting in requirements that really make sure to cover everyone. And again, I also want to, I came in here just maintaining acknowledgement of the very good work that the county legislature is doing in all of these things. And I'm sorry if, at no point do I mean to say that this isn't happening, but what I'd like to see. And making sure that there are tax abatement opportunity, that the tax abatement program is used to the advantage of people, of low-income people as well, and not just low-income people. For me, it's very important to maintain an anti-racist, anti-discriminatory perspective, and making sure that these programs also help community members of color and directly and low-income people, so that people who are low-income like me can afford to live in one of these places, or can afford to purchase a property that might be able to benefit. One thing I'll say that is, I guess, somewhat tied into this is that in my district and I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's in my district who told me, because I was telling her about my woes of not being able to buy a house, and she told me that basically to buy a house, or anyone who wants to buy a house and is of around my, or modest income, the way to do it is to buy a property that you can rent. And I think she's right. And I also think that there's something that doesn't sit well about that with me, that like the only way that I can buy a house is to become a landlord. And so I just wanted to bring that up too as an issue. Not that I wouldn't do that, but that's the only choice, and that that's and the issue of landlords and tenants is one that is pervasive throughout my district, because we have a lot of owner-owned homes, that landlords of different degrees. Thank you so much.
So I'd like to open it up to a couple questions from the audience. Because I have more if you guys don't want. Yes, please.
So you spoke a lot about being a minority and people in your district and your communities. And I look around the room and I'm not faulting anybody or criticizing anything, okay? I just noticed we're mainly white.
Yeah.
And there's a whole huge section of the population whose voice we're not hearing. It's not in part of it's not in. And what thoughts do you have on getting people engaged who are, well, people period, but
Absolutely. I mean, what's your name? John, thanks for asking that question. And this is actually something that I'm called upon to answer a lot. And for all sorts of organizations, from like one-time events to organizations, people say, we want to increase diversity. And when I walked into this room, when I walk into any room, I notice that I'm the only person of color. And for me, it's an interesting situation. Well, I'm not the only person of color, actually, but that I might be, or that I'm among very few. I don't like the term minority because I think it has this no, it's okay. It's true. I am right now a minority in that there's less of me than you, but I don't like the term because it perpetuates this idea that we are also less. And for me, it's really important. It gets me I'm very excited at the prospect of being a person of color as a minority in the county legislature, as I am excited to be a person of color here in this group. And I'm excited to be on all the boards that I'm on, that I'm the only person of color or among a couple of people of color. And to me, a lot of the work that I do, to answer your question, is in getting other people, other community members of color interested in joining the organizations that I've joined, and in getting communities of color brought to the table. But it's my belief, and I'm not the only one, that if you want people of color to join your organization, people of color or any community that you want to join needs to be at the leadership and needs to be part of that organization at the most core of its level. Not just, like a bunch of white people, as we say, organizing what's going to happen and then wondering where all the people of color are. If you have people of color, and I notice it in the organizations I'm on, I notice it when I see an organization that has leadership members of color, that those organizations tend to be more diverse, and not just in seeing them as more diverse, but in the actions that they take and the place that they hold in our communities, to have a more progressive agenda and a way of doing things, and also a worldview of approaching things. I come from Colombia, and I can say that I'm just used to a lot more community-focused way of doing anything. I have a small business, and I approach it that way. I approach everything I do, and the boards that I'm on, I try to bring some of my worldview, and I encourage. I don't want to be a gatekeeper, and I really, I'm not. I just want to make sure it's clear that I don't think that there should be, any tokenizing of people of color, but there needs to. It makes me disappointed to go into a room of progressives, or of, not just to point out this group, or environmentalists, or any kind of group that's trying to do something good in the community, and not see people of color, not just people of color, but low-income people, especially when in their mission statement it says low-income communities, marginalized communities. So where are those communities in the leadership? Thank you. Hi. Thank you.
Right now at the county legislature, there's a discussion going on about open meetings. And the discussion is the legislature supports making people write their name down, which then is called out to the public and their residents. And so there's a law that protects people in marginalized communities, yours and mine every day. And so that law protects people from being harassed if their identity is discovered in public comment. And so would you support the open meetings rule law that says people should not be forced to identify? Thank you.
Can you repeat the question actually for the microphone?
Who, me? Oh, yes. So, oh, wow. Thank you. So what's your name? Joanne, thank you. So, I actually sorry, I just did that. But you could have said anything. You just asked me, I'm so sorry. I'm only finding humor in this current situation that I'm in. So you just asked me that there's a current, and this is what I was trying to understand, there's a current law, an open meeting law in the county legislature that states that, at the state level, sorry, thank you, that states that so does the law state that you do have to state your name or you do not need to state your name? And so there's no requirement. Okay, so so according to state law, there's no requirement that says that you need to state your name. Right, so.
At this point, the county legislature is requiring people to identify, which then identifies them in public record.
Right, so the county is currently asking people to identify themselves by name and where they. They're requiring this. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question. So right now, for anybody who doesn't know, on the blue cards, the way that state law works with open meetings law is that it allows for open meeting, right, that people can, or the body can have a privilege of the floor. There is also recognition that the legislature or any government body that is having public comment period can set rules of engagement. The county legislature currently has a requirement that part of their rule at the county for engaging at privilege of the floor is that they agree to the rules of engagement, which is 3 minutes, that you don't disparage anyone, or you don't speak about the performance of personnel, several other comments, and you sign it. And the way the process is right now is that goes to the chair reads the name on the blue card and calls the person up.
Right.
And the consideration or the conversation that's happening is that requirement is actually causing harm for some marginalized populations, is the stance, and the question is it necessary, is it not, what's your stance on that?
Thank you. I was just having a hard time reiterating the question. And I am familiar with the question and with the issues of concern. I share, as you mentioned, concerns for people who are in danger. I came to this country undocumented and was, hiding and not wanting to be identified for years, and had to learn how to say my name and feel safe. And so I think in some of the email exchanges that I've been on about this issue, somebody suggested a pseudonym or a name to offer. And so I think that could be a situation where if it's necessary to give a name, that it not need be the name, a name that's going to identify you. But I think, I would need to understand better why a name is required at all. So I'm definitely for the protection of people who are marginalized and are feeling in danger. And I don't see a good reason to have to give your name if you're not feeling safe at a public meeting. Thank you.
You had a question?
I was just in light of you being a community organizer, and not that you would stop doing that, but if you're going into transition to a political role,
Mm-hmm.
and specifically at the county level, how would you see your role, and I guess in terms of relatively dividing your time or your
Right.
focus as to bringing those concerns and point of view from your community organizing, and that versus or juxtaposed to learning the ropes, as you say, of the legislative agenda, what the more kind of day-to-day, maybe a bit more mundane
Right.
aspects, that would be. So could you address how you would see your own role?
Right. So do you mean like time-wise, how would I spend, or do you mean like my role as a community organizer, how would that transform if I were a legislator, or?
I guess in terms of your own personal interests.
Oh.
What are your intentions in terms of, do you have, obviously you've got a lot of ideas and passion and
Right. Yeah.
perspectives to bring. But
Right.
how much of your time do you see as devoted to that, kind of bringing that, seeing
Yeah.
this as a platform for bringing those forward?
Absolutely.
Time to, I guess, more of a learning role, at least
Yeah.
getting to
Right. Well,
the day-to-day.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm very excited at the prospect of joining the county government because I'm able to bring a lot of those experiences with particular populations and particular situations, but also in general with community organizing and the kinds of strategies that might be helpful to to the role of legislator that come from community organizing that might be different from other, professions that people commonly come to legislative positions. And I do acknowledge that there's a lot to learn, and I had a meeting with Anna early on when I decided to run, and Anna is somebody who I definitely admire. We know each other, on a personal level, and she's a very has high, is high performing and high aspirations, and we, yes, well, I don't know. But when we talked, I was like, "Whoa, that's a lot to learn." So I'm on the Ethic Festival Board, Latino Civic Association Board. I have my own organization called Cultura Ithica that I started. And when I join any of these organizations, I understand what is needed of me, and then I commit myself completely to doing that. And I'm also in a very fortunate position of having this organization, Cultura Ithica, for over 10 years that, we started and has been building. And for the last year already, regardless of whether I get elected or not, I plan to be active in local politics. And I want to transform my morph, like from community organizer to being involved in local politics. And so I'm saying that because I've been working on creating, fostering new leadership for that organization so that I can dedicate myself, to this new position, but not losing sight of those organizations that are very much a part of me, and so I look to Anna, I look to Leslyn to be, very good examples of people who definitely, are doing a good job in the legislature and have activist and concerns for marginalized people, for these kinds of communities that I've already talked a lot about. Thank you.
Emily.
Do you know which committees already you'd like to serve on? Have you already started to attend some of them to get a feel for what's going on?
Thank you so much, Emily. I am very interested in the Jail Study Committee and the Public Safety Committee. I have not gone to any committee meetings. I've attended several legislature meetings, but as I was saying, as I prepare myself to be able to take on the big responsibility of possibly being on the legislature, I've had to attend to more of the work, the community activist work that I do a lot. But thank you very much.
One more question from here. That I can ask. Actually, there's like 10, but Cuomo wants every county in the state to look into consolidation of government offices. How do you think that Tompkins County should approach this? How would you go about implementing your recommendations? And that's the last one.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Anna. So this is another, question where it's an issue of balance, and I definitely see, in all things in the world being right, where consolidating services, for example, like the city police and the county police, would be a good thing, or other services, consolidating services that are doing something similar, and in the nonprofit world too, like you don't want to duplicate services, as they say, and consolidation does seem like a good thing, but it can also have implications where, I would want to just make sure to keep in mind that when consolidation is being considered, that the safety and well-being, once again, of all of our citizens, or not citizens, I don't like that word either, of all of the community members in our communities are kept in mind, and not just kept in mind, but are at the forefront. And that, I think that it's a balance act too. Thank you.